What if I told you that the most famous maritime disaster in history wasn't just a tragic accident, but rather a series of mistakes that condemned the Titanic to its fate? Join me as we uncover the 10 critical errors that transformed the so-called unsinkable ship into a floating tomb. Number 10. Missing of binoculars. One of the pivotal mistakes that contributed to the Titanic's tragic fate was the absence of a crucial tool, a pair of binoculars for the lookouts. As the ship sailed into icy waters on that fateful night in April 1912, the crew relied solely on their naked eyes to spot hazards. The lookouts in the crow's nest, tasked with keeping watch, had no means to enhance their vision. Number 9. Collision. The Titanic's front bow section was designed similarly to a modern car's crumple zone, intended to absorb the impact of a head-on collision. This design aimed to protect the integrity of the compartments behind it and minimize water inflow. However, the scraping against the iceberg may have inflicted more structural damage than a direct collision would have. Nonetheless, First Officer Murdoch could not have anticipated this outcome. Number 8. Bulkheads. The Titanic's design included bulkheads that were intentionally not tall enough to reach the passenger deck level. This decision meant that once water overflowed these bulkheads, they became ineffective, allowing water to flood all compartments and surge uncontrollably through the public areas above. As the situation escalated, the Titanic's bow began to sink, lifting the stern high into the air. Number 7. Open portholes. After the Titanic struck the iceberg, the ship came to a stop and many passengers opened their portholes to see what had happened. As it became clear the ship was in grave danger, the crew ordered everyone up on deck to prepare for evacuation. When passengers went up to the lifeboats, they left their portholes open. As the Titanic began to sink, the open portholes allowed water to flood in at a much faster rate. In fact, just 12 open portholes would have doubled the damage from the iceberg collision. With hundreds of portholes open, the Titanic's sinking was greatly accelerated. Number 6. Rivets. Riveting is a crucial method for fastening two sheets of metal together, especially in shipbuilding. To start the process, a rivet is heated and then inserted through a pre-punched hole in the aligned metal sheets. Once in place, the flat end of the rivet is hammered, deforming it into a second head that secures the two pieces together. Under normal conditions, rivets perform well. However, during the Titanic's voyage, the North Atlantic was unusually cold. The ship was cutting through icy waters, causing the hull to be below freezing. This was problematic because high-quality steel rivets required a bulky hydraulic machine for insertion, which was difficult to maneuver in the ship's bow section. Consequently, manual riveting was necessary in these tighter areas, but wrought iron rivets were used instead of steel. Wrought iron has its drawbacks. It's less versatile than steel and contains slag, a byproduct from the smelting process. This slag can make the rivets more prone to fracture, especially under heavy impact and low temperatures. When the Titanic struck the iceberg, the force had to be absorbed somewhere, and it impacted the weaker seams along the rivets. This caused the ship's hull to essentially unzip, allowing water to flood in, leading to the tragic sinking of the Titanic. Number 5. Central prepolar. The Titanic's rudder was designed to provide significant power for changing direction, but it was only effective when the ship was moving. A key moment occurred when the order was given to stop the engines and then reverse them. This action caused the center propeller to stop, which meant that for a few crucial seconds, there was no water being pushed across the rudder. This situation was marginal, and if the rudder had been even slightly more efficient, it might have turned just enough to avoid the iceberg altogether. Instead, the Titanic struck the massive iceberg, leading to one of history's most infamous maritime disasters. Number 4. Desert mirage. The varying air densities caused light to bend, creating a mirage effect that obscured the iceberg. Lookouts Fred Fleet and Reginald Lee were unwittingly gazing into an optical illusion. On that fateful night, the air was exceptionally clear, allowing visibility up to 80 miles. However, this clarity led to a band of haze on the horizon, which blended with the iceberg's color, making it harder to see. This optical trickery meant the iceberg appeared smaller and more distant than it actually was, delaying the lookout's response. Number 3. Wireless. To be a wireless operator on one of these massive ships, you had to be exceptionally skilled. Operators needed to be quick and accurate in sending and receiving Morse code, as well as handling incoming passenger messages. They also received urgent safety alerts from nearby vessels, which were marked with 3 critical letters, MSG. This designation indicated a priority message meant for the ship's captain, often concerning vital information like ice warnings. On the fateful day of the Titanic's sinking, several ice warnings were sent to Captain Smith, including one from the SS Mesaba, which clearly indicated that the Titanic's new route would lead directly into dangerous ice fields. Unfortunately, this crucial message never reached him because it lacked the MSG prefix. Later that night, just an hour before the collision, another warning arrived from the nearby Californian, stating they were surrounded by ice. However, the Titanic's wireless operators were preoccupied with communications to Cape Race, Newfoundland, which meant they were unable to hear the urgent message from the Californian. When the Californian attempted to get through, the Titanic's operators dismissed them, saying, "Keep out, old man," indicating they were too busy to listen. This tragic miscommunication played a significant role in the disaster that unfolded. Number 2. Fire. Titanic's firemen revealed that a fire had been burning in Coal Bunker 5 since the ship left Belfast, over 10 days before the fatal collision. The fire was still smoldering when Titanic departed Southampton on April 10, 1912. It took until April 13, the day before the sinking, to finally extinguish the blaze by removing all the coal from the 3-story-high bunker. The steel bulkhead forming the rear of the bunker was also part of a critical watertight compartment designed to stop flooding. Firemen testified that this bulkhead had been warped and distorted by the intense heat, possibly weakening it. The inquiry found the fire had deflected the metal hull plates, breaking the watertight seal and causing water to slowly leak into the bunker even before the iceberg collision. While the fire itself did not directly cause the sinking, it may have compromised Titanic's structural integrity and ability to withstand flooding. Some argue the fire was a contributing factor that, combined with the iceberg damage, led to the catastrophic loss of the ship. However, most historians maintain the iceberg collision alone was sufficient to sink Titanic regardless of any pre-existing fire damage. Number 1. The RMS Olympic. On September 20, 1911, the RMS Olympic, sister ship to the Titanic, was on her 5th voyage across the Atlantic when she collided with the HMS Hawke in the Solent. The Olympic was trying to maneuver around the warship during a friendly race, but misjudged the turn, resulting in a significant impact. Despite suffering damage, including 2 large holes above and below the waterline, the Olympic's watertight compartments held, allowing her to remain afloat and return to Southampton for repairs. This incident led to a false sense of security among the public, as many believed that if a massive liner like the Olympic could withstand such a collision, it must be virtually unsinkable. Captain Edward Smith, who had previously commanded the Olympic, felt less concerned about iceberg dangers due to this experience. Ultimately, the collision with the Hawke may have contributed to a dangerous overconfidence that would later be tested by the Titanic disaster. If you found this deep dive into the Titanic's mistakes enlightening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more historical explorations. Let us know in the comments which moment surprised you the most. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious.